You wake up from a dream, and you see figures running towards the armory from the R.F. Kennedy farmhouse. It's happening. It all comes back to you. 2 days ago, your neighbor told you that the abolitionist John Brown was going to raid the armory at Harpers Ferry. You don't know how he got this information, and you don't believe him. You told him off and scoffed. But now, on Monday of October 17th, 1859, it's happening. John Brown is leading his group of 21 men into the armory with the plan of taking thousands of weapons for his growing army. The telephone lines weren't working, and no one else was up. So you go back to bed like nothing happened. You wake up early the next morning to hear that while the town was sleeping, John and his army managed to raid the armory, cut telephone lines, and capture the great-grandson of George Washington, Colonel Lewis Washington, including other hostages. You work the baggage claim at the station. You get there and look around for the missing guard. You turn the corner and meet the barrel of a gun. Your name was Shepard Hayward, and you were the first person killed in the raid. Hey everyone, welcome back to Better History. My name is Logan, and today we have another episode of John Brown. And this is actually going to be the last episode, so next week we'll come in with something new. I'm going to surprise you guys on that one. Now I know it's kind of a dramatic opening today, and I apologize, but I wanted you to feel what I think someone living in that time would have felt. I hope it's close, but anyway, let's continue. So, as I said, you, Shepard Hayward, was the first person to die in this raid. Now, Brown didn't plan on anyone dying, but when he saw that the first person that died was a black man, it only made his pain 10 times worse. John started to become a nervous wreck, and the villagers noticed that the raid took place, and they started shooting at John and his army. They were eventually joined by organized militia from neighboring towns. These attackers had the high ground on John, just like Obi-Wan did Anakin, and this caused John and his men to let the hostages go back to shelter, and they ended up retreating to the shelter as well. Several of John's raiders were killed by rifle fire, and others were pinned in the armory while retreating from the bridge. 3 raiders were in a schoolhouse across the Potomac River to rendezvous with the fleeing raiders and slaves, but the militia had control of all the escape routes, making it virtually impossible for the raiders to escape now. John realized that trying to escape would cost so many lives. Now, John thought, I could let that train go. We won't be here much longer. Well, that was actually a terrible idea because the train brought word of the raid straight to D.C., and the president had the Marines there by about sunset to retake the town the same day. Now, these group of Marines was led by Robert E. Lee and J.E.B. Stuart. These men would become future leaders of the Confederate Army. By dawn the next day, so Tuesday, the raiders were completely surrounded by the U.S. Marines, and they demanded an unconditional surrender. After John refused, Colonel Lee ordered to have his men storm the engine house. The raiders fought back as much as they could, but they were largely outnumbered. Now, some of those that were there said something incredible happened. They said that when Lieutenant Israel Green, who led the assault on the engine house, went to kill John with his sword, he hit him in the belt buckle and his sword bent. Now, they say that the reason for this is because he was carrying his dress sword, which is a little more flimsy. This did injure John, though, and several other things severely injured him, but he made it out alive. And captured, too, which is not that good. Sparing almost no time for John to recover, these soldiers almost immediately took him to Charlestown, Virginia. They put him on trial for things like conspiracy, treason, and insurrection. John was so injured during the trial that he would sleep on a cot throughout proceedings. His lawyers tried to get him to plead insanity so he could spare his life, but John refused to accept this defense because it would damage the cause of abolition in the eyes of the world. John was able to rise for the verdict. He was sentenced to death. On December 2nd of 1859, the wagon arrived at John's cell to take him to the gallows. As John took his last look at the world, he was no longer angry. He was buried on December 8th of 1859 in the earth of those northern mountains that he hoped would guide thousands to freedom. Free black men and women from all over America attended his funeral. Now, John never did live to see a free America, but in his death, he accomplished what he couldn't have done in his life. For the 45 days between when he was captured and when he was hung in the gallows, John wrote many letters that were published in newspapers throughout the country. Also, the publicity surrounding John's execution only strengthened the abolitionist cause and rallied thousands to call for an end to slavery. Many people called John a crazy zealot. Others called him a hero. Opinions on him differed, and my question for you today is, do you think he was a crazy man? Let me know in the comments, and before you go, I want to leave you with this quote that John Brown said. "I did not wrong, but right. Now, if it is deemed necessary that I should forfeit my life for the furtherance of the ends of justice, and mingle my blood further with the blood of my children, and with the blood of millions in this slave country whose rights are disregarded by wicked, cruel, and unjust enactments, so let it be done." Thank you, everyone, so much for watching, and I hope to see y'all soon. Next week, we got a new topic. Bye-bye.